your views on dating, particularly a topic that you and I have chatted a lot about, which is meeting, approaching people in person, you know, women in our case, versus dating apps, which, you know, are great in some ways for meeting people, but also, like social media, have this kind of addictive element where you like keep going, and you definitely can make deep connections through there, but sometimes the ease and accessibility of it can lead you down more of a kind of hookup path, which is not necessarily bad, but it's like, again, to your point around like, are you consciously deciding that path, or are you just getting stuck doing the same thing, and you feel like you're maybe not progressing that area of your life? Where are you at with it?
So I would say definitely, I think apps are really hard if you want to be, well, at least if you are someone that has some social competency with women, because I know there are many men who 80% of men don't get matches. I don't want to insult these guys by saying, yeah, with apps you're gonna sleep around all the time, because if 80% of men who would hear me say this would say, but I don't get any matches. And I don't want to insult these people. So we're coming at the context of someone that we're assuming is able to use apps to get matches, right? We're going with that assumption.
That's actually a super important assumption, and maybe a whole nother tangent,
whole other topic.
A whole nother topic would be that would be.
What if you're not getting matches?
Yes, yeah.
How does that impact your self-worth? You know? So that's a whole separate, which maybe we can get to if we have time. But in terms of to your point, I think if assuming you are able to get matches, I think it's if you're on the top 20% of people that does get matches, and maybe there's a spectrum there. Some people get it maybe a few weeks. Some guys might get loads a day. I think it's actually very challenging to become monogamous when you're in that state, because you have so many options. 90% of women are matching with you, and then you have all these options to pick from. The power dynamic really shifts in favor, I think, of guys that do get matches. And I think they can suffer because they don't develop relationship skills. They might just be sleeping around all the time. The app is designed to, you have that endorphin rush whenever you get a new text, whenever you complete a quest in a video game. I think it's almost a rush of the new. The allure of the new, I think, can be very, very tantalizing. I'm sure there are hundreds of guys that have girlfriends from apps. My ex-girlfriends have been from apps, so I'm not saying it's not possible, but I think that is a potential downside. Also, the apps are designed to monetize you. You are the product. So they're going to have ways of maybe limiting the quality of matches that match what you're looking for. Maybe give you matches that are less aligned with you. So you're getting girls, but you're constantly seeking something that more aligns with you. Whereas maybe organically, you would have just gone for that, whatever you align with straight away. Yeah, I think with apps, because it needs to monetize, I think there is an aspect of you may not get the best quality match. What I mean by best quality is in what you're looking for. Not that person A is better than person B, but you might get someone that aligns with you slightly, but you're not going to be satisfied. So you might keep going back and back. Whereas organically, you might go for that person that really aligns with you and be happy. Also, because you're dating organically, you have less of a grass is greener syndrome to begin with. I think another thing is it takes away an aspect of, in this culture of boy to manhood transition. In lots of psychology, they look at this where there's some ritual that a boy has to go through to become a man, that lots of tribes will have. If you analyze tribes around the world, they'll probably have this ritual in part of their society. And I think part of this, not necessarily a structured ritual, but just that organically happens for a boy to man, is the ability to approach a beautiful woman and risk being embarrassed, risk being rejected. And I think not developing these skills is a bit detrimental to a man's evolution, to his growth. Then that being said, in India, the culture that I admire most greatly, classical India, they arranged the marriages. So there wasn't any of this. So there's no dating culture developed at all, which probably links to a lot of the issues between men and women in modern India.
Right.
Because there's generations of there's zero generational history of courting. It was just your parents deciding for you. So now all of a sudden you're in Delhi, everyone's drunk, you have the freedom to speak to women. You don't know how to behave. You might do some weird stuff. You hear about these stories in India. That's a potential reason why. That's anyway, back to the West. Talk about India all the time.
Let's go down.
So I think for me personally, I sometimes struggle if I have had a girlfriend through apps. I'm thinking, but I haven't really gone through this ritual enough. I haven't gone enough of embarrassment and surpassing
the
my
initial risk
limit.
and adrenaline rush.
That risk. That being said, if you met the girl of your dreams, why would you not date her if you had it through
True,
apps? It's ridiculous.
For sure.
Pride. I can't tell if this is healthy thinking or pride thinking at this point. Keen to hear what you think.
Interesting. I think there's definitely something I instinctively feel around that, in terms of that initial time that you see someone and kind of lock onto them. Yeah, in a healthy way. But when you like notice someone and you're like, I 100% have to speak to them, that initial feeling is great and it's essentially not there in the dating apps process. But as you said, when you meet someone on a dating app that like actually you're like, wow, this is an incredible person. I wouldn't say that necessarily something is missing there, but it is a different experience.
Yes. And there's the third experience of a friend becoming more than a friend. There's the other experience of you meeting someone organically, making something happen. Then there's the app, and I think these are all very unique experiences. But I think the key aspect to me is you developing certain skills. As long as you develop those skills, I don't think it really matters. You know, the ability to face risk. You don't have to develop them in the dating space, right? You might, business-wise, you might develop risk, or in sports, Tim.
For sure.
So I think there are other ways you can develop these aspects, but I think the ability to approach a beautiful woman, or woman you find beautiful, I guess, whatever, is that I think it takes a lot for a man. I don't think women realize how scary it can be to go up to them in public and approach. And also, you hear so many stories of this guy is creepy. I was walking home late night, this guy spoke to me. So, or I'm in the office and there's power dynamics. I don't want to. You need so many things as a guy you need to think about that you don't have to think about on apps. This girl is single. She likes my profile. I like her profile. You don't have to take any risks anymore. You don't have to be awkward. You don't have to tread on toes. You don't have to learn to be graceful. Because I think it takes a lot of
graceful is an interesting choice of words. Was it?
I think you need to, because you are a stronger potential predator, right? That's how she can see you. So you need to. You're saying I want something from you. I find you beautiful and attractive, but you need to do it in a way that she feels safe and
for sure.
And that you grace you, and to eventually go for it, and you realize, you know what, this is actually a really nice experience. Your testosterone's pumping up. You feel great. You message your friends. I just spoke to this beautiful girl on the train. I remember you inspired me to speak to a girl on the train.
What was that one?
Well, I messaged you. I said, "There's this beautiful girl opposite me, and I'm reading a book." And I think you said something that you need to.
You need to ascend to the next level. This experience, you'll ascend to the And the 100% the thing which in my life, I think most the biggest. I'm not sure what age it would have been, but it actually probably would have been around like going to university time, where you suddenly got this freedom and meeting lots of people. What made me just really turn the switch and just be so much more natural with the approach or comfortable with the approach was something my sister said, which is like, if you assuming you don't get angry with them or even be rude or cold at the end, you've essentially just given them a nice compliment.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're like a chill person and you've gone up and spoken to someone, even if the interaction is ended with I've got a boyfriend or whatever the social reason is, that's still like a nice little confidence boost for them.
Exactly. And I think women want to be swept off their feet. They want this romantic experience. And if they don't want it with you, at least you're doing it. You're gracefully, you're still complimenting them, as you said. Either you give them that amazing experience, that romantic movie that they want, or you give them a compliment. If you're doing it gracefully, it should be a win-win either way. So,
and what we probably need a woman's view here, but I wonder if there's you mentioned about like the rite of passage of a guy in some ways, or at least we certainly feel like this, or guys like us certainly feel like this, where it's a skill you need to cultivate, or something you need to overcome, particularly when you're younger. But I wonder if there's also maybe some kind of rite of passage on the feminine side of like being able to receive and deal with that in increasingly mature but open ways, without so it's like open but also the ability to close it down,
know how to say no.
Knowing how to say no, but then also not being jaded by the experience. I think it's probably a lot harder from that perspective for at least us, I guess on the male side, the objective is maybe more clear in terms of your like to speak to them, to engage in conversation. Whereas from the female side, there's a million different factors going on.
And I think for
kind of
female, there's the safety factor, which we don't have to deal with. That puts everything into a different perspective, which we don't have to deal with. But yeah, I do wonder if they have a rite of passage as well. That's interesting to ask someone.
Exactly. I think to touch on like a more spicy, not spicy. To touch on a more contrasting term is something that's used a lot on, I'd say on social media, not necessarily in a dating space, but in like a self-development space. And we could touch on in a sec in terms of like on social media, how easy it is for self-development to fall into the kind of red pill, almost incel-esque community, and like where is the dividing line there? But a term that's often used, and I'd say in like the mainstream, is a term of like, oh, you become a high value man, you know, and what is a high value man, or a high value woman, but it's naturally like a problematic term in terms of if you just go into a random pub and start talking about, oh look, there's that high value woman, or this, I'm going after this, that, and the other. There are a lot of people who either unconsciously or willfully will like misinterpret that in terms of like, okay, you've got a very specific and prescriptive view on what a man or woman should be, whereas if you're in a circle or in a friendship group where you use that term and you basically got like a generous interpretation of what the other person means, then it can be a useful term for describing these kind of dynamics and describing what you're after.
Yeah, I think if you're a group of people that assume positive intent, then I think it's a really useful term to say, this is what I'm looking for. And it just summarizes that so clearly. Or when you're describing yourself, you're saying, I want to become high value, that whatever things that I consider to be valuable, I want those. I think the issue is when people interpret it as, if you say X is high value, therefore A, B, C, D, all the way to Y is not high value.
Yeah.
Which is, it's a fair, I guess, logical leap to make. But I think it's just a very effective way to say, I want to become more, or I want to find someone that matches me. And that's I think that's all it's saying. 100%. But that being said, I do like when I'm occasionally checked on my language, because we can use the example that we had in a WhatsApp group that I are in with another friend, where I said, I can't remember the exact quote, and I know you know it, where we say women break rules for alphas and make rules for betas. And I think I got corrected by our friend, or Fabio, where he said, actually, women will do things they like for men they like, and for men they don't like, they might make them take longer to do stuff. And I think that was I actually found that really powerful. That was really transformative, that conversation, because then I started getting these really big pride issues where if I really liked a woman and she wasn't willing to like me back, or maybe it'd take a long time for her to be interested in me, it would really hurt my self-worth, because I think I'm a beta male. I don't even know what beta male means, but I'm saying this phrase, all it's going through my head non-stop. Whereas if I rephrase it as, if she likes you, she's going to invite you for dinner, she's going to take you out, she'll cook for you. And if she doesn't like you, you have to earn her affection. That's completely fair. Some people like you, some people don't like you. And I found it generally damaging to my mental health, having that alpha beta mentality. Was when I rephrased it, thanks to Fabio's rephrasing of just, either she's into you or not into you. It was just...
Yeah, for sure.
But I still think...
And there's also there's also an element of, there's so many different things going on at their moment in their life.
Exactly.
There are so many different phases of what they are into, or what they are looking for, whether that be something super wholesome, or whether that be something darker desires, etc. Let's go on another tangent. I forgot where I was going with that now.
But I want to raise on your previous point. I think it's
yeah.
tough when people assume negative intent, and I think that's really annoying. And I think you gave a good counter when someone does that. Like, what did you think I mean by that?
I say this all the time, and I think this particularly came from a position of I used to be much more argumentative and used to really enjoy the debate. I still enjoy debating a lot, but I definitely over time found there was much more value in like understanding where someone is coming from. One, because most topics that you can have a debate about, once you've had a number of debates on them, the variation in that conversation is not huge, and you definitely refine your argument, but it can lose its novelty and interest and lack of adrenaline rush as well. Maybe not adrenaline rush, but lack of rush that you get from that kind of debating gladiatorial language. Whereas if you come from an understanding point of view, I feel that you learn a lot more nuances about where someone is coming from. And then following on from that comes to what you said in terms of like when you're in the reverse position and someone suddenly, you can often see it in their body posture as well, suddenly like wants to either willfully misunderstand you, or is just triggered and is reacting in a habitual way, either habitual from their own personal circumstances or habitual from a kind of social media-esque perspective, is most of the time, if you ask them like, what do you think I meant by that, they will be able to very articulately and normally very accurately describe what they thought you meant by that phrase. And what they'll often say, doing this big ominous they, is they'll often say, yeah, but someone else could misinterpret you like that. Yes. And it's like, yeah, okay, but we're not in that scenario.
Exactly.
And, you would assume some degree of social nuance in different situations. So I'm not necessarily against people, calling each other out. Actually, definitely not. And you gave it a great example of where Fabio did it. Pardon?
He did it in a very nice way. He didn't do it
exactly. He did it in an open, like generous interpretation. Just an open way. Yeah.
It wasn't that I think you're saying this stuff. He said, I just wanted to say, I want to question that phrasing, but I know what you mean. Whereas when I think the examples we're thinking of, it's, you're saying this. It's like, you could have just said from the start, someone could interpret like that, but I know what you mean.
Yeah.
That would be a much nicer way to check someone.
100%.
On these things. But it's interesting that you linked self-development to these incel red pill communities. And I actually don't even know why they're so linked. My theory is that a lot of what is considered high value when describing a woman in these communities often conflicts with sexual empowerment for women. And I think that's where it's like, okay, you're misogynistic.
Oh, interesting.
Because I think when men go into self-development communities and when it often conflicts with women's sexual empowerment views.
Interesting.
And I think that's where the disconnect comes in. You listen to someone like Andrew Tate, for example, or Jordan Peterson, they're very different people to each other. Yeah. But I'm just giving the wide spectrum.
So if someone listened to Andrew Tate, Jordan Peterson, Sorry.
It's going to be a big push to you be a man in a monogamous relation. That's going to be, maybe not Andrew Tate, but Jordan Peterson for sure. And I think that naturally that conflicts with everything about, you as a woman should be sexually empowered and do. So I think that's where the feud comes in a bit. And I think this links to our previous topic of 80% of men not getting matches on apps. They're hearing, but you can just match with anyone, you have so many options. And I don't think people realize what it's like to be a man that doesn't get options. Especially when they're constantly reminded of it every single day by app culture. And they're seeing 20% of men getting with all the girls that they would love to get with. And I think it really stings their pride and they become incels, they become red pill.
Yep.
But of course, with that becomes a desire to become more, which is the self-development. And then they want to justify the fact that women don't like them by saying that women are, degrading them. It's like, you don't want to sleep with me, but you're horrible because you shouldn't be sleeping around, And I think this
like the Madonna whore complex.
Yeah, exactly. I think it gets messy, and then I think it has a big. It's all linked. I think all these different things. That's why I see it. There's a desire to be more, but a desire to justify the fact that people don't like you because they're just whores,
Yep.
Instead of you becoming more attractive, you just blame them for being not being disciplined.
100%. So then maybe in this realm. That was like a really, really interesting and specific example of like a big mindset shift that you've had. Are there any other examples, either from ages ago or recently, that you were like, fuck, once I started thinking about it in that way, that was really useful?
And I think speaking to you helps with this is because I think I definitely suffer a bit from a Madonna whore complex for sure. As in I definitely struggle with the Western sexualization of humanity, and when I'm in a romantic dating stage, I really struggle to engage with the fact when a woman has lots of history, and I struggle with that. And I think I need to not let that impact my self-worth. That, for example, just because she wanted those things of those people, that doesn't mean she can't have it. Like you said, sometimes you want darker desires, sometimes a woman wants a healthy, monogamous, supportive relationship. And I think just because I meet a woman who did want those other things, that doesn't mean that she doesn't want to be my wife now, So I think there's something that I'm still actively working on. I think hearing your thoughts and other friends' thoughts and not being so binary, it's just life is much more fluid than I think I've realized. And that's something that I actively want to work on now. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know if it's some insecurity. And then on the flip side, maybe it's not insecure. Maybe it's wise to date someone who's been less promiscuous. I don't know. So even I'm confused.
Yeah. You can always.
I don't want to go the whole. I want to be woke and say yes, I should date anyone. On the flip side, I don't want to judge everyone. And I'm personally struggling with this dichotomy.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I think maybe my view on that is I wouldn't even put myself on the woke end of the spectrum. I just very approach these things with like I think anything's kind of possible point of view in terms of the variations in personality types means that there are lots of people who can be very promiscuous outside of relationship. But when they are in a relationship, they're still loyal or monogamous or whatever aspects that they're looking for.
Yeah, assuming you wanted monogamy.
Yeah, assuming so million. Cool. So if you want, what are you looking for in a woman right now?
I mean, I'd say I'm definitely looking for monogamous relationship now. I think what I've realized, I've invested so much energy and time into dating girls, seduction, being able to speak to a girl in public and not be shy. But these aren't the same as relationship skills. This isn't the same as cooking her meals. This isn't the same as reading her body language and seeing she's in pain because of her period, so you buy her some flowers and treat her well. This isn't the same as doing the chores or just sitting at home when, maybe that honeymoon phase is over and or taking her for a surprise. All these different things I've not invested in these aspects, so I feel I'm almost quite behind in many ways in terms of being a valuable partner material to someone. So I like to invest in being more like this and getting away from that sort of dating culture. Also in the yogic system, to bring the yogic system back, it's actually very advised to be monogamous from the start and not to sleep around. They believe in something called Runana Bandha Karma, which is that your body holds a memory of everything it touches, everything you smelled, everything you've seen, everything your senses has engaged in. It's stored in your memory banks, even if you can't consciously recall it. So when you sleep around, it's a very intimate experience, and it impacts the body's memory, and it has an impact on they claim the yoga system on anxiety and depression and the confusion. Especially,
it's interesting that the conclusion in that case is like that it seems like the more memories there are a bad thing, whereas you would imagine that if you're collecting memories and you're collecting more good memories, that would be a positive thing.
So yeah, not mental memories, but the body's memory. And this is beyond my understanding. If you type in Runana Bandha Karma, you can see explanation, but that's a really good point. I don't have the answer to that. So because the yogic system, it's not about morals, like I was saying with food. It's about what is conducive for your system to be receptive to a deep state.
Interesting.
So it's not about it's immoral for you to have many partners.
Right.
This is not conducive for your body to be as receptive as possible to what we're offering. So that's why very much in the ancient Indian culture, you arrange marriage quite young. You might not physically be your partner, but this is going to be your wife. They'll tell you when you're very young, and you're going to marry them at some point, or that's your husband, then you're settled, or you became a monk and you transcended it, or you settled it. You're sexually romantically settled this person. Now you can do something meaningful with your life. That was how it was approached. So rather than wasting how much energy could you spend on Hinge, texting 20 girls for one evening? I'm thinking, and it's insane. And then was that you're settled? Okay, now you got to become a businessman. Now you become a warrior. Now you become whatever your caste was. Of course, they had a caste system back then. So on that aspect, that's one reason why I want to do it. And like I'm saying, it's not a moral thing. I think it's conducive for the lifestyle I want to live, where I can hard focus and do something of worth before I die. On the other hand, I've realized in small snippets of relationships how beautiful it is to have that companionship. And I wish I invested a bit more in that and not in the grass is greener, always chasing something new. So to answer your question, I wouldn't define traits, because I think life is beautiful and it happens beyond your own imagination. They say you imagine a house and life gives you a mansion. That would be way cooler. So rather than me trying to define strictly what I want, one thing I have come, and I'm curious to hear your opinion on this, is the importance of matching in interests and hobbies versus just matching in values. I think this links to another question, which is how important it is to have friends. Because if you have many friends, let's say me and you, let's pretend we both love bouldering. I know you do, I'm not that into it, but we boulder together. That's one less hat that your future partner has to wear. Because you've got someone to share that with.
Oh, yeah, I 100%
and then you can focus just on values.
Yes, yeah. And I definitely, one thing that I'm thinking about is I'm actually very, very rarely thinking about common interests.
But I think a lot of people do think about common interests.
A lot of people do. Yeah. And maybe, not to say that, long-term relationships in the past haven't had common interests, but they've not been what I've they've not been what I've sought out, and they've actually not been something that I've noticed until a little bit further down the line. Yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, as you said, I think a lot of people optimize towards common interests.
They'll date someone for long term just because they both play football or whatever.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
But on the flip side, having multiple friends where you can be. Actually, I had this conversation with someone around authenticity very recently, like a few days ago. Oh, and authenticity is a massive word, and it means lots of different things to different people. But it was about the idea of like speaking about some things with some people and some things with other things. And like for me, authenticity does not mean wearing my entire personality on my sleeve at all moments. It doesn't mean that I have to bring 100% of me to every moment, or 100% of my personality to every moment. It just means when I'm using this 10-20% of my personality with this person, that all the whole of that 10-20% is real, is true, and is honest. But there can still be, another 60-80% that I, either don't want to show at that moment, want to show later down the line, or actually just feel no desire to show it and would prefer to express it in a different space with other people. That's definitely a big thing which I consciously think about.
Yeah, I think there's a study about one of the biggest key indicators of happiness. Once again, I hate quoting studies. I'm not prepared with a study, but
we'll link to them in the comments.
Is the importance of friendship is one of the biggest things. It's friends actually, because it's actually really important. And actually, friends can also be really good for a healthy marriage because, like we're saying, you can express different sides of yourselves to them. And I think to answer your original question, what I'm looking for, it's in a roundabout way, the importance, I think, of monogamy for what I want. Not saying morally, I'm not saying a judgment, but for the lifestyle I want, I think. Like I said, it's the particular diet that's most conducive for the body I want. I'm not always eating like that, so it's not that that is better than another diet. But for what I envision as my ideal self, the high value thing for myself, it's not that. This doesn't mean that other styles are not valuable. One aspect would be monogamy, and two would be shared values. But otherwise, the list is open because I have so many friends, so many people I can express things with. So as long as values are shared, that's really all what I'm looking for. I wouldn't go beyond that, and who you click with, of course, helps. Obviously, physically attracted to them. But yeah.
Okay, final question. If you could give one message to your younger self, let's say late teens, what would it be and why?
It would be discipline is freedom. Because I think the younger me, because it's the younger me, not to everyone, so he would hopefully understand what that means, that everything that he's working on, if he can just stick to it, he might not see it now, but over time there'll be benefits. The principle of Kaizen, the principle of just keep at something, and life will blossom and flourish for you, rather than just seeking short, quick wins or satisfaction or trying to settle your pride or ego. Just discipline is freedom. There's a quote which is easy choices, hard life, hard choices, easy life. And I really think if the younger version of me did more of the harder choices, the future me would enjoy the dividends of that investment.
Cool. So, I like that. And then what advice do you think yourself in 15 years' time will be giving you now?
Don't hesitate and take risks to get out of a 9-to-5.
Nice.
Yeah, go for it. And you either make something happen or you learn.
Cool. Excellent.
And don't go back to old patterns of behavior that are not serving you. That are coming out of insecurity.
Cool. Yeah. I like that. Sick. All right, man.
Thanks, man.
That is now actually the end.
Yeah. That was cool, man.
Oh, man. Thanks, man.